So the number one question we get from our clients for 2024 is, what's going to happen? It's an election year and we're coming off a very strong 2023. Now, granted, we don't have a crystal ball, but we can look back at data. And there's a piece that came out from First Trust, which I'll share in a moment, that talks about the history of the S&P 500 during election years, going all the way back to 1928. So if we look at what has the last 24 election cycles done in the S&P 500 since 1928, we've actually seen 20 of the last 24 years show a positive return, or 83% of the time. Now, what's interesting is that typically the S&P 500 has a pretty strong year, depending, or regardless, I should say, of who gets elected, and it shows an average growth going back again to 1928 of over 11%. Now, granted, it's a little higher if a Republican is brought into office and elected. Democrats are around 8.5%. But regardless of that, what history tells us is that the election year is typically pretty, I don't want to say predictable, but there's not a lot of volatility. Neither candidate on either side want a lot of volatility. And what's unique here is that we can see each and every election year in what has happened from the S&P 500. Now, granted, in 2008, which was a challenging year, we saw a negative 37% return, but 2009 was an incredible rebound. So we don't have a crystal ball. We do look at data. We can go back to all these different years and see really what does the S&P 500 return. And then even after the first full year, so this will be in 2025, what does that look like? And what does that look like regardless if it's a Democrat or a Republican? And then so we saw the dot-com in 2001, and then as I mentioned earlier, 2009, after a negative 37% return, we saw a nice positive bump of 26+%. So great articles, great data here. Work with your financial advisor. Make sure your plan is in alignment with your long-term goals. But if you want additional help or if you want clarity in your financial plan, reach out to us. See ya.